Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we are looking at the 12 Mahajana series here, and this session deals with Prahlada Maharaj. So just a quick recap. So Mahajana means great soul, and the reason why we are studying the Mahajanas is because they have been empowered by Supreme Lord Krishna to deliver transcendental instructions to us. So if we attentively hear these instructions and apply them in our life, follow in their footsteps, then we can achieve all success in this lifetime and go back to the Supreme Lord after this very lifetime. So we are going to look at an amazing devotee of the Lord, Prahlada Maharaj. In fact, he is so exalted that so our Srimad-Bhagavatam has 12 cantos, and one entire canto, canto 7, which has 15 chapters, is devoted to Prahlada Maharaj and how his demoniac father tried to kill him, and how the Supreme Lord appeared for the protection of his devotees. So before we look at Prahlada Maharaj, let's take a look at how his father, the great demon of that time, Hiranyakashipu, and the brother of Hiranyakashipu, how they appeared in this world. So once upon a time, at sunset, Kashyapa, the son of Marichi, was offering oblations to Lord Vishnu into the sacrificial fire. At that time, his wife Diti approached him due to being greatly afflicted by sex desire. So the beautiful Diti frankly begged her husband, "O learned one, Cupid is forcibly distressing me with his arrows, just as an elephant troubles a banana tree. I want to have sons like my co-wives, and so you should be merciful to me." So Kashyapa said, "O afflicted one, I shall soon gratify your desires. I only request you to wait for a few minutes so that I may not become subject to criticism, because the present moment is most inauspicious. Because at this time, Lord Shiva rides upon his bull carrier, accompanied by his horrible, ghostly companions. He gives such ghosts the chance of getting a gross material body by placing them into the wombs of women who indulge in sexual activities during this forbidden period. Lord Shiva is your sister's husband, and with his free eyes he will see your forbidden act." In spite of receiving such good instructions from her husband, Diti was so oppressed that she forced her husband to satisfy her desire. So Kashyapa, after offering obeisances unto worshipful faith, he lay down with Diti in a secluded place. And after finishing the forbidden act, he purified himself by bathing and once again sat down to chant the Gayatri mantra while meditating upon the impersonal aspect of the Absolute. Meanwhile, after having gratified her lust, Diti came to her senses. With her head lowered in shame, she approached her husband and she said, "My dear husband, my dear Brahmin, please ensure that my embryo is not killed by Lord Shiva because of the great offense that I have committed against him." Diti then prayed for Lord Shiva's mercy in a very clever manner. Let me offer my obeisances unto the angry Lord Shiva. He is so great that he can immediately destroy my embryo, but at the same time he is so merciful and forgiving. Lord Shiva is known as the Lord of all women who are excused even by uncivilized hunters, and therefore I beg him to spare me from his wrath. As Diti stood before him, trembling due to fear of his anger, Kashyapa said, "Because of your polluted mind, the improper time, your disobedience, and your neglect of the demigods, your conception will produce 2 abominable sons who will create havoc within the world by killing innocent persons, torturing women, and enraging the great souls. As a result, the Supreme Lord will incarnate to kill them, just as Indra smashes mountains with his thunderbolt." So Diti then said, "Oh, my husband, it is a great relief for me to know that my sons will be killed by the all-merciful Supreme Lord rather than the wrath of the Brahmins. One who offends the Brahmins or causes fear to others is so condemned that even those who are already in hell or who are of the degraded species in which he will later on appear feel no compassion for him." So Kashyapa then informed Diti, "Due to your repentance and firm faith in the Supreme Lord, as well as your adoration for Lord Shiva and me, one of your grandsons will be a greatly exalted devotee whose fame will rival that of the Lord himself. Because of his great devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, others will follow in his footsteps. And because of his having satisfied the Supreme Lord, everyone will become pleased with him. As a first-class devotee, your grandson will be able to see the Supreme Lord within and without. He will be a reservoir of all good qualities, and he will feel very pained to see the suffering of the conditioned souls in this material world." And we know that this son is none other than the great Mahajana Prahlad. So after hearing the glories of Prahlad, Diti became very pleased. So because she could understand that her sons would cause great disturbance to the demigods, she continued to bear the powerful embryos for 100 years without giving birth. Still, the force of Diti's pregnancy disturbed the entire universe, and the light of sun and moon became impaired. So, Lord Brahma, so the demigods approached Lord Brahma, and they said, "Please be merciful unto us, for we have fallen into a very miserable condition. Just see this darkness that is expanding in all directions." So there was great darkness, and so the demigods approached Lord Brahma for some explanation. And Lord Brahma then he told them the story of how actually these 2 great demons, they are none other than Jai and Vijay, the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, who had been cursed by 4 Kumaras to fall down on this earth and be demons. This story is there in the Srimad-Bhagavatam about how the Kumaras cursed the doorkeepers. But for now, let's just focus on the demons Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So therefore, Diti gave birth to 2 demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And these were very, very powerful demons who caused a lot of trouble to every living entity in this material world. So So Diti gave birth to twin sons who were the great demons, and at the time when they appeared, there were fearful natural disturbances, earthquakes, and inauspicious planets like Saturn and Mars outshone the auspicious ones. Fierce winds made a displeasing hissing sound. Solar and lunar eclipses occurred repeatedly. Mountain caves produced sounds like the rattling of chariots. She-jackals vomited fire while crying out. Asses ran here and there in herds, striking the earth with their hard hooves, braying loudly. So all kinds of inauspicious omens were observed. So Kashyapa named the first child, who was formerly Jai, the doorkeeper. He named him Hiranyaksha, and the one so there was another one, Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu was actually the father of the great Mahajana, Prahlad. So soon after their birth, these demoniac twins, they exhibited uncommon bodily features, and their steel-like frames became so tall that they seemed to touch the sky. Indeed, they blocked the view in all directions, and as they walked, the earth shook with every step. So Hiranyakashipu, after performing austerities, as we will see, he received benedictions from Lord Brahma, and he became unafraid of death. And the brother Hiranyaksha would take his club and travel all over the universe with a fighting spirit, and he scared even the demigods. Hiranyaksha, when he saw Indraloka, the residence of the heavenly planets, basically Indraloka, when he saw it vacant, he roared loudly, understanding the demigods had fled. So Hiranyaksha, he started mining the earth for gold, and he was in a fighting spirit. And one day the earth fell in the Garbhodaka ocean, and we know that Lord Varaha appeared from the nose of Lord Brahma. So Lord Varaha was the boar incarnation of Lord Vishnu, and he picked up the earth which had fallen in the Garbhodaka ocean with his tusks, and he killed Hiranyaksha. So we can see in the picture here, there was a great fight, Hiranyaksha versus Varahadev, and Hiranyaksha was killed by Varahadev. And when Hiranyaksha was killed, then Hiranyakashipu, he was not very happy. And so he performed the funeral ceremonies for his brother, and he tried to pacify his mother Diti and his nephews and his sister-in-law. So then Hiranyakashipu became very, very, he was very angry. He hated Lord Vishnu. He wanted to take revenge on the death of his brother. And so he decided that he wanted to become immortal. He wanted to become very, very powerful in order to fight with Vishnu and take revenge. So he went to the valley of Mount Mandara with the desire to become immortal, unconquerable, and he wanted to be the master of all mystic powers, the sole ruler of the universe. And so there, on Mandara mountain, he performed severe austerities for 100 years, celestial years, and he stood motionless. So it was a very difficult type of austerity. He stood motionless upon his tiptoes with his arms extended outwards upwards and his eyes directed towards the sky. Although it was extremely difficult to maintain such a position, he continued to do that for 100 years. So when the demigods who had been wandering over the earth saw that Hiranyakashipu had gone away to perform austerities, they became somewhat relieved, and so they returned to their heavenly abodes. But however, after some time, there was a light as effulgent as the sun that at the time of dissolution, annihilation of the universe, this effulgent sunlight light began emanating from Hiranyakashipu's head. The fire and the smoke spread out in all directions and thus gradually encompassed the lower and higher planetary systems, so that everywhere it became extremely hot. Extremely hot. So the demigods, they left their residences. The rivers and the oceans became agitated. The entire surface of the earth trembled. The entire surface trembled. So all the demigods, they left their residences, they approached Lord Brahma, and they informed him of the situation. They said, "O Master of the universe, because of the fire emanating from Hiranyakashipu's head, we have become so disturbed that we can no longer reside in our planets. O Lord of the demigods, if you think it proper, then kindly stop Hiranyakashipu's austerities before all your obedient subjects are annihilated. Hiranyakashipu has undertaken a most severe type of austerity, and although his plan is not unknown to you, kindly hear about it from us." The great demon is thinking like this: Lord Brahma has attained his exalted post as a result of severe austerities. I am eternal, and time is also eternal. Therefore I shall endeavor to perform austerities for many, many births until I am able to occupy his seat. Then by the strength of my acquired prowess, I will reverse the results of pious and impious activities, and thus overturn all the established practices in this world. So the demigods concluded by saying, "O Lord, you're the master of the three worlds. Please, without delay, take whatever steps are necessary to save the situation. For if Hiranyakashipu occupies your post, everything will be spoiled." So they submitted these prayers before Lord Brahma. Now, before we move on, we have to say, we have to understand how Prahlad, in the womb of his mother, became enlightened. So during the time when Hiranyakashipu was away for 100 years, carrying out austerities, his wife Kayadu was alone. And so she got captured by Indradev and the demigods. The logic of Indradev and the demigods was that if Hiranyakashipu was like, since he was such a great demon, then his son would be even greater than him and would cause even greater chaos in the universe. So while the son was still in the womb, it was best to kill him before he saw daylight. So that was the plan. They wanted to kill the demon demon son of Hiranyakashipu. But just as Indradev was about to kill Kayadu, Narada Muni appeared on the scene, and he stopped them and he said, "No, don't, because actually the child in the womb is a great devotee of the Lord. He is not going to be a demon and not be like his father." So Narada Muni then took Kayadu to his ashram, and there he would recite the Srimad-Bhagavatam every day. And Prahlad, in the womb of his mother, was hearing each and every word, and so he became purified, and he became a great devotee of the Lord. He heard the science of devotional service from Narada Muni, the great Mahajana, and so he became enlightened. Now his mother would fall asleep and not really listen, but Prahlad in the womb would listen very attentively. And so, while Prahlad became a great devotee, his mother didn't. So, coming back to the demigod's request to Lord Brahma. So, let's see. So, after hearing the request, Lord Brahma immediately set out, riding upon his swan airplane and accompanied by the demigods and some great sages. At first, Lord Brahma could not locate Hiranyakashipu because his body had become covered by an anthill. So we see here in the picture how his body had become covered. There was also grass and bamboo. Because Hiranyakashipu had remained there for a long time, the ants had devoured his skin, fat, flesh, and blood, so only a skeleton remained. However, Lord Brahma saw the son of Diti appearing like a cloud-covered sun heating the entire universe. Being struck with wonder at the sight, Lord Brahma smiled and then said, "O son of Kashyapa, please get up. Let there be all good fortune, for you have become perfect in the performance of your austerities. I want to offer you a benediction, and so you may ask from me whatever it is that you desire. I am very astonished to see your endurance. It is a marvel that you have tolerated being eaten by all kinds of ants and worms, and you've kept your life circulating within your bones. Even great sages like Bhrigu could not perform such severe austerities, nor in the future will anyone be able to do so. Who else could sustain his life for 100 celestial years without even drinking water? Because you have accomplished what's impossible for even great sages, I have been conquered by you, and thus I am prepared to reward you with all benedictions." So after saying this, Lord Brahma, then he sprinkled water from his kamandalu water pot upon Hiranyakashipu's body, so that immediately his form became rejuvenated. Indeed, Hiranyakashipu's complexion now resembled molten gold, and his limbs were so strong that they could bear the striking of a thunderbolt. As fire springs out from wood, when Hiranyakashipu emerged from the anthill and saw Lord Brahma stationed before him in the sky, seated upon his swan airplane, he became extremely pleased. After falling flat onto the ground to offer his obeisances, Hiranyakashipu stood up, and due to excessive jubilation, tears flowed from his eyes and his entire body trembled. And Hiranyakashipu, very humbly with folded hands, offered prayers. And he said, "O my Lord, O best of all givers of benedictions, if you wish to fulfill my desire, then please let me become immortal." So we can see demons, that is the nature of demons, that they will carry out austerities, but not to achieve bhakti for the Lord, or not for becoming a devotee. Rather, they always ask for benedictions to fulfill their desires, their sense gratification desires. So Hiranyakashipu, he adored Lord Brahma as a supreme personality of Godhead in expectation of receiving his cherished benediction. He didn't worship Lord Brahma because he had faith, or he he had faith in Lord Brahma, worshipped him as Supreme Lord. He wanted something, and that's how Asuras behave. However, when Brahma explained he did not have the capacity to award immortality, since even Lord Brahma himself had to eventually die, Hiranyakashipu tried to make the best use of a bad bargain by requesting benedictions as follows. So Hiranyakashipu thought he could outwit the Lord. He could outwit Lord Brahma. Hiranyakashipu asked, "Oh my Lord, please let me not meet with death at the hands of any of the living entities created by you." So he said, "Grant me that I do not die within my residence, within any residence or outside any residence, during the daytime or at night, nor on the ground or in the sky. Grant me that my death not be brought by any being other than those created by you, nor by any weapon, nor by any human being or animal." Furthermore, he said, "Let me have sole lordship over all the living entities and presiding deities, and give me all the mystic powers attained by the practice of yoga and austerities." So Lord Brahma, being very satisfied with Hiranyakashipu because of his wonderful performance of austerities, Lord Brahma replied, "O son of Diti, the benedictions you have requested are very difficult to obtain, but I shall nonetheless grant them." Thereafter Lord Brahma departed while being praised by the sages and demigods and being worshipped by the best of demons, Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyakashipu had never forgotten his enmity towards Lord Vishnu. Gradually he conquered the entire three worlds by defeating the rulers of all the planets within the universe. Hiranyakashipu began residing within Indra's palace, which had been constructed by the celestial architect Vishwakarma. Hiranyakashipu brought the upper planetary systems, the middle and the lower planetary systems under his control. So Hiranyakashipu, he took over Indralok, and he was continually intoxicated with strong smelling wines and liquors of his and his eyes were always rolling. Now, nonetheless, due to the power of his austerities, everyone in the universe, all the demigods, had to bow down and offer obeisances at the feet of Hiranyakashipu, who would chastise them very severely, even for no reason at all. So everyone in the universe except Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu had to personally worship him and please him with presentations offered with their own hands. And so Hiranyakashipu controlled the inhabitants of all the other planets, and everyone had to glorify him and offer praise to him. And whatever offerings were made in sacrifice by the strict followers of Varnashram Dharma, Hiranyakashipu accepted for himself these sacrifices without sharing them with the demigods. Due to fear of Hiranyakashipu, the earth itself delivered grains without even being plowed. The cows delivered abundant milk, and outer space remained beautifully decorated with wonderful phenomena. The oceans and rivers supplied all kinds of jewels for Hiranyakashipu's use, and the valleys between the mountains served as his pleasure grounds. So we can understand that Hiranyakashipu, he took over. It's like he was the Supreme Lord, basically. So every living entity became very very disturbed. So the demigods and all the predominating deities of the various planets began worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. While reciting this prayer, let us offer our respectful obeisances towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so the Supreme Lord spoke to the demigods with a voice as grave as thunder, but very encouraging as well, driving away all anxiety. So the Supreme Lord said, "O best of learned persons, do not fear. I wish you all good fortune, and thus advise you to become my devotees by always hearing and chanting my glories. I know all about Hiranyakashipu's activities, and I shall surely stop them very soon. Therefore, please wait for that time. When one is envious of the Vedas, the demigods, the cows, the Brahmins, the Vaishnavas, religious principles, and ultimately of me, he will surely be vanquished without delay. When Hiranyakashipu torments his son, the great devotee Prahlad, who has no enemy, I shall immediately kill him, despite the benedictions of Brahma." When the Lord ceased speaking, the demigods offered their respectful obeisances unto him, and they then returned home, confident that the great demon Hiranyakashipu was as good as dead. So Hiranyakashipu, so we know that Kayadu, she was returned actually back to her palace after some time, and she gave birth to Prahlada Maharaj. Actually, Hiranyakashipu had 4 very wonderful and well-qualified sons. But the best one was Prahlad, because he was an unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prahlad had the exemplary character of a perfectly qualified Brahmin, and he fully controlled his mind and senses. So Prahlad, the great Mahajana, like the Paramatma, he was very kind and the best friend to everyone. To respectable persons, he acted just like a menial servant. To the poor, he was just like a father. To his equals, he was like a sympathetic brother. And he considered his teachers, spiritual masters, and older god brothers to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prahlada Maharaj, he was completely devoid of a natural pride that might have arisen from his good education, wealth, beauty, aristocratic birth, etc. And although born in the family of Asuras, Prahlad was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. He was never envious of the Vaishnavas. He was never agitated when put into danger, and not at all interested in fruitive activities described in the Vedas, for he considered everything material to be useless. So from Prahlad, from the very beginning of his childhood, he was uninterested in childish play. He remained silent because he was fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Indeed, Prahlad was so engrossed in thought of Krishna that he, thus fully under the Lord's spell, which was like some strong planetary influence, he could not understand how the world was going on with its activities of sense gratification. And Prahlad, he was always being embraced by the Lord. He did not even know how his bodily necessities, like eating, walking, lying down, sitting, drinking, talking, were being automatically performed. So just as a small baby on the lap of his mother does not know how the needs of his body are being fulfilled, Prahlad was being cared for by Govinda. So if a mother leaves her small baby so that she can attend to other household affairs, the child will begin to cry in her absence. But as soon as the mother returns to care for the child, he becomes jubilant and laughs. Similarly, Prahlad sometimes felt separation from the Lord, thinking him to be far, far away, and so he would cry or loudly call out for him. Then when he would see the Lord coming from a great distance to pacify him, like a mother who responds to her baby by saying, "My dear child, do not cry, I am coming," Prahlad would laugh, or sometimes, without being ashamed of his surroundings, he would dance in ecstasy. Sometimes, being fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, Prahlad would feel oneness, and he would imitate the Lord's pastimes. Sometimes, upon feeling the touch of the Lord's lotus hands, Prahlad would become thrilled with ecstasy and simply remain silent, with his hair standing on end and tears of love falling from his half-closed eyes. Simply by seeing Prahlad when he was absorbed in such perfect transcendental ecstasy, even persons who were very poor in terms of spiritual understanding became purified and blissful. Shukracharya was the ritualistic priest of the demons, and his two sons, Shanda and Amarka, resided near Hiranyakashipu's palace. Prahlad was already fully educated in terms of devotional life, but his father sent him to Shukracharya's sons so that he could be taught material subjects along with the other sons of the demons. And there Prahlad heard the topics of political science that were being expounded by his teachers, but because such philosophical topics involved considering someone as a friend and someone else as an enemy, he did not like it. So one day, Hiranyakashipu took his small son Prahlad onto his lap with great affection. So Prahlad was only about 5 years old at that time, and he asked his son a question, expecting him to reply with something childish and pleasing, but not actually practical. Hiranyakashipu said, "My dear boy, please tell me what it is that you have found to be the best of all the things that you've studied in school." Prahlada Maharaj replied, "O chief of the Asuras, the best thing that I have learnt is this. A person who has accepted a temporary material body for enjoying a household life of sense gratification is certainly embarrassed by anxieties due to having fallen into a dark well where there is no water but only misery. One should give up such an ignorant life which is blind to self-realization and go to the forest and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari." Upon hearing these words, which disclosed Prahlad's faithfulness to the camp of his enemies, Hiranyakashipu laughingly said, "Such is the intelligence of an innocent child who has been spoiled by the words of my enemies." So Hiranyakashipu advised his assistants, "My dear sons, my dear demons, you must carefully protect my son at the Gurukul so that his intelligence may not become further influenced by any Vaishnavas who might be going there in disguise." When Prahlad was brought back to the Gurukul, Shanda and Amarka learned of what had happened from Hiranyakashipu's servants. Taking the boy aside, the two teachers inquired from him with very mild and affectionate voices, "Dear Prahlad, kindly tell us the truth, and do not speak lies. None of the other boys here are like you and speak in such a deviant way. How has your intelligence come to be polluted? Who has given you such instructions regarding the Vaishnava philosophy?" Since Prahlad was just a little boy, the teachers thought that if they spoke to him very sweetly, then he would divulge the names of the devotees who were stealthily coming to instruct him. It was their hope that these Vaishnavas could be arrested and brought before Hiranyakashipu for necessary punishment. In response to Shanda and Amarka's inquiries, Prahlad replied, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose external energy has created the distinctions of my friend and my enemy, by deluding the intelligence of men. Although previously I had heard about this phenomenon from authoritative sources, I am now experiencing it myself. When the Supreme Lord is pleased to enlighten one who is engaged in his devotional service, such a devotee no longer makes a distinction between himself, friends, and enemies. Instead, he thinks every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we are not different from one another. In other words, the same Supreme Lord who has bewildered persons into thinking in terms of enemy and friend has given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. O teachers, just as iron is attracted by a magnet and thus automatically moves towards it, my consciousness is attracted to Lord Vishnu." So Prahlad wanted to explain how, instead of being polluted, his intelligence had been purified by the grace of his spiritual master and Krishna. Although Hiranyakashipu considered Lord Vishnu to be his enemy, Prahlad wanted to point out that the Supreme Lord is never the enemy of anyone, but is the well-wishing friend of all. In addition, Prahlad explained that his liking for Lord Vishnu was not deviant, but rather the natural position of all living beings. After hearing Prahlad's speech, Shanda and Amarka became very angry and chastised him. "Bring me a stick! This Prahlad is ruining our reputation and thus needs to be treated by the fourth means of diplomacy. This rascal Prahlad has appeared just like a thorn tree in the forest of sandalwood. An axe is needed to cut down sandalwood trees, and the hard wood of a thorn tree is very suitable for making the handle. Lord Vishnu is the axe for cutting down the sandalwood forest of daityas, and this Prahlad is the proper handle." After chastising and threatening Prahlad in various ways, Shanda and Amarka continued teaching him about the paths of dharma, artha, and kama. Then after some time, when they felt that Prahlad was sufficiently educated in the science of politics and diplomacy, the two teachers presented him before Hiranyakashipu after having him nicely bathed and dressed by his mother. When Hiranyakashipu saw that his son had fallen at his feet to offer obeisances, he affectionately blessed the child while picking him up with both arms. After happily embracing Prahlad, Hiranyakashipu seated him upon his lap and smelled his head with great affection. Indeed, the tears from Hiranyakashipu's eyes moistened the child's smiling face. Hiranyakashipu said, "My dear Prahlad, you have been hearing from your teachers for a long time now. Please tell me what you think is the best of all that you have learnt." Prahlada Maharaj replied, "Hearing and chanting about the transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering him, offering serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord to be one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. These 9 processes of pure devotional service are considered by me to be the topmost education. Anyone who has dedicated himself to their execution should be understood as the most learned person. Hearing this, Hiranyakashipu became extremely angry. His lips trembling, he chastised Shanda, who was standing before him. You unqualified, most abominable son of a Brahmin, you have disregarded my orders and sided with the enemy. What kind of nonsense have you been teaching this boy? In due course of time, various diseases become manifest in the bodies of sinful persons. Similarly, one may have many deceptive so-called friends, but eventually, due to their false behavior, their real nature becomes evident. Shanda replied, O king, whatever your son Prahlad has said was not taught by me or anyone else. His devotion to Lord Vishnu is spontaneous and has naturally developed in him. Please give up your anger and do not accuse us unnecessarily, for it is not good to insult a Brahmin in this way. Hiranyakashipu then turned to Prahlad and said, You rascal, you're the most fallen member of our family. If you did not receive this education from your teachers, then from whom, from where have you gotten it? Prahlad replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, people who are too addicted to materialistic life glide down to hell while repeatedly chewing that which has already been chewed. Their inclination towards Krishna can never be aroused by the instructions of others or by their own efforts or by a combination of the two. People who are overly engrossed in the consciousness of material enjoyment cannot understand that the goal of life is to engage in the devotional service of Lord Vishnu, to return home back to Godhead, as blind men who are guided by another blind man stray from the right path and fall into a ditch. Materially attached persons who are led by another materially attached man become bound by the strong ropes of fruitive activities and thus continue to suffer the threefold miseries, unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava, completely freed from material contaminations. Persons very much inclined towards materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination. While listening to Prahlad, Hiranyakashipu became practically blind with rage, and he violently threw his son off from his lap onto the floor. His eyes glowing like molten copper, Hiranyakashipu ordered his servants, Take this boy away from me and kill him as soon as possible. This Prahlad is the killer of my brother, for he has given up his own family to engage himself as the menial servant of my enemy, Lord Vishnu. Because even at the tender age of 5, he has given up his affection for his own mother and father. He cannot be trusted. Indeed, how can it be assured that he will behave well towards Lord Vishnu? Although a medicinal herb is not of the same species as a man, still, because it is beneficial, it should be kept very carefully. Similarly, if someone is outside one's family but is favorable, he should be protected just like a son. On the other hand, if a limb of the body is severely infected, it may have to be amputated so that the rest of the body can remain healthy. In the same way, even if one's own son is unfavorable, he must be rejected. Just as the uncontrolled senses are the enemies of a yogi who is aspiring to advance in spiritual life, this Prahlad is my enemy because I cannot control him. Therefore, he must be killed by all means. The Rakshasa servants of Hiranyakashipu all had fearful faces, sharp teeth, and copper-colored hair and beards. Upon hearing their master's direction, they took Prahlad, and while striking the tender parts of his body with their tridents, they made a tumultuous sound, shouting, "Chop him up! Pierce him!" Even though a person who has no assets in pious acts may perform some good deed, it will have no result. Similarly, the weapons of the demons had no tangible effect upon Prahlad, who simply sat silently and undisturbed, fully absorbed in meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the attempts of the demons thus proved futile, Hiranyakashipu became somewhat fearful, and he began contriving other methods for killing his son Prahlad. Next, Hiranyakashipu tried to crush Prahlad to death by throwing him under the feet of huge elephants. Then he put Prahlad into a pit full of large poisonous snakes. He threw Prahlad down from the top of a very high hill. He gave Prahlad poison, and he tried starving him to death, drowning him, freezing him, burning him, and crushing him with heavy stones. Hiranyakashipu even tried to use conjuring tricks and magic spells, but no matter what he did, he could not even slightly harm his sinless son. Becoming very anxious about what to do next, Hiranyakashipu thought, in spite of chastising Prahlad with so many harsh words, and in spite of devising so many ways to finish him off, I have not been able to kill him. Somehow he is able to save himself by his own prowess, and because of this, he remains completely fearless. He resembles the crooked tail of a dog, which can never be straightened, for he always remembers my misbehavior and his connection with his master Lord Vishnu. This boy seems to be immortal and to possess unlimited prowess, for he is not at all afraid of my punishments. Perhaps because of my enmity towards Prahlad, it is I who will end up being killed. While thinking like this, Hiranyakashipu remained silent and morose, bereft of his bodily luster and his head bowing low. Seeing this, Shander and Amarka approached him in private and gave him the following advice. O Lord, simply by the movement of your eyebrows, all the planetary rulers become terrified. Without any assistance, you have conquered the entire three worlds, and so we cannot find any reason for you to become so anxious and morose. Prahlad is nothing but a child, and so whatever good or bad qualities he may have are not very significant. Until the return of Shukracharya, you should keep the boy locked up. Then in due course of time, when he becomes a little grown up and has assimilated our instructions, his intelligence will surely change. There is no need for you to worry so much. So Hiranyakashipu agreed to this proposal, and thereafter Chandranamarka systematically and unceasingly taught Prahlada Maharaj, who was very humble and submissive about dharma, artha and kama. However, because such instructions were based upon the dualities of this material world, Prahlad being transcendentally situated, did not like them. When the two teachers would go home to attend to some household affairs, Prahlad's schoolmates would call him to come out and play. And Prahlad would smile and then reply to the children very sweetly. He would reply to them very sweetly just to instruct them about the uselessness of materialistic life. All the children respected Prahlada Maharaj very much and were highly affectionate towards him. Because they were all just 5-year-old boys, they were not yet so polluted by their materialistic education. For this reason, they would innocently give up their playing and surround Prahlad so they could hear from him. As the boys fixed their hearts and eyes upon him in great earnestness, Prahlad instructed them for their welfare as follows. One who is sufficiently intelligent should begin the practice of devotional service from the tender age of childhood. This human form of life is very rarely achieved, and although it is temporary like other bodies, it is very important because one can use it to perform devotional service and thus attain complete perfection. Devotional service is natural because Lord Vishnu is the most beloved, the master of the soul, and the well-wisher of all living entities. My dear friends, born in demoniac families, the happiness derived from the contact of the senses with their objects can be obtained in any form of life, according to one's past fruitive activities. Just as distress is obtained without endeavor, so happiness is also achieved automatically. For this reason, endeavors for economic development, sense gratification, are a waste of time. Instead, as long as the body is still stout and strong, one should try to become Krishna conscious in order to come to the spiritual platform of eternity and bliss. Everyone has a maximum duration of life of 100 years. However, for one who cannot control his senses, half of this time is lost due to sleeping 12 hours at night. In childhood, one first passes 10 years in complete bewilderment. Then as a boy, he spends another 10 years playing and engaging in sports. In old age, when one is invalid, he passes another 20 years being hardly able to perform any activities. One whose mind and senses are uncontrolled becomes increasingly attached to family life. Due to insatiable lusty desires and very strong illusion, one wastes his remaining years and thus cannot engage in the devotional service of the Lord. How can a person who is too attached to household life due to uncontrolled senses liberate himself from material bondage? Materialistic persons think that money is sweeter than honey. Therefore, who can give up the desire to accumulate money, especially in household life? Thieves, professional soldiers, and merchants try to acquire money even by risking their very lives. How can a person who is very affectionate towards his family members, the core of his heart being filled with their pictures, give up their association? The wife is always very kind and sympathetic, and she gratifies her husband in a solitary place. The small children speak in broken sentences that are very pleasing to hear. In addition, One's parents, household furniture, servants, and animals are all objects of attachment. Who could give up such comforts? The attached householder is like the silkworm that weaves a cocoon in which it becomes imprisoned and cannot come out. Simply for the satisfaction of the tongue and the genitals, one is bound up by material conditions and thus cannot escape. Such an attached person cannot understand that he is wasting his valuable life, and yet although he fails to understand that human life is meant for self-realization, he very cleverly makes sure that not a single penny is lost due to mismanagement. My dear friends, those who are bereft of knowledge on the Supreme Personality of Godhead are addicted to sense gratification, and thus they become playthings in the hands of attractive women. Such persons are called demons, and due to being victimized by such a conception of life, they become surrounded by home and relatives, and in this way they are shackled to material life. Although you are all sons of demons, you should stay aloof from such persons and take shelter of the Supreme Lord Narayan, who awards his devotees liberation from the bondage of material existence. Lord Narayan is a supreme soul and the father of all living beings, because every living being's relationship with Lord Narayan is an eternal fact. There is no impediment or difficulty in pleasing him. So Prahlad said to his friends, "Therefore, my dear young friends, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord will become satisfied with you. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities. Become their well-wishing friend by enlightening them in devotional service. There is nothing that is unattainable for the devotees who have satisfied the Supreme Lord. And yet, because the Lord is the reservoir of all spiritual bliss, the devotees have no use for dharma, religiosity, artha, kama, and moksha. Since they are satisfied simply by glorifying his lotus feet. This transcendental knowledge was formally explained by Lord Narayan himself to the great saint Narada. Although it is extremely difficult to comprehend without the mercy of a pure devotee, anyone who takes shelter of Narada's disciplic succession can attain this confidential understanding. I received this knowledge, which is called Bhagavad Dharma, from Narad Muni, and it is based on logic and philosophy and is free from all material contaminations. The sons of the demons inquired, "My dear Prahlad, neither you nor ourselves know of any teacher other than the sons of Shukracharya, since we remain within the palace and do not have any chance to associate with a saintly personality. How were you able to hear all this from Narad? Dear friend, kindly dispel our doubts in this regard." So then Narad Muni Prahlad Maharaj explained how, while his father was away, his mother Kayadu was captured by Indradev, and how Narad Muni came to the rescue, and how Narad Muni delivered instructions to Prahlad while he was in the womb, and his mother, as we mentioned, she was more concerned about the welfare, about Prahlad's welfare, and she longed for the return of her husband. And also, due to being less intelligent, Prahlad's mother forgot all that Narad taught. But on the other hand, Prahlad, by the blessings of Narad, did not forget his instructions. So Prahlad then told the story, and he said, "Therefore, my dear friends, if you can place your faith in my words, you can also receive this transcendental knowledge." So by hearing these instructions from Prahlada Maharaj, we can also learn a lot. If we apply these teachings of Prahlada Maharaj, which he has acquired from his own guru, Narada Muni, then our life can be successful. So Prahlad he continued to instruct his school friends, saying, "All of the fruit and flowers of a tree undergo 6 transformations: birth, growth, maturity, production of byproducts, dwindling, and death. The tree itself remains unchanging, standing for many, many years. Similarly, the material body that the living entity obtains under different circumstances undergoes the same transformation. But there is no such change for the spirit soul, because both the individual soul and the Supreme Lord are spiritual, eternal, unchanging, and non-material. A wise person gives up the illusory conception of life in which one thinks, 'I am this body, and everything in relation to the body is mine.' As an expert geologist can extract gold from rock, so an advanced transcendentalist can understand how the spirit soul exists within the body and then extricate it from material entanglement. Since the eternal self is situated within the 8 separated material energies, the 3 modes of material nature, and the 11 senses, as an observer, all the great acharyas have concluded that he becomes conditioned by these elements. By the process of niti, this is not. One must separate the spirit soul from its gross and subtle coverings. Of all the different processes that are expounded for disentangling oneself from matter, the one that is personally recommended by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be considered as perfect. To execute this process, one must accept a bona fide spiritual master and render service unto him with great faith and devotion. Whatever one possesses should be offered to the Guru, and in the association of devotees one should worship the Supreme Lord, hear and chant his glories, meditate upon his lotus feet, and worship his deity form strictly according to the injunctions of Shastra. By executing these activities, one can cut down the influence of his enemies, namely lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy, and then attain the platform of loving service unto the Supreme Lord. When such a liberated devotee hears the glories of the Lord, his bodily hair stands up on end, tears fall from his eyes, and his voice falters. Sometimes he openly dances and loudly sings, and sometimes he cries. In this way, the devotee appears to be haunted by a ghost, because he forgets all social etiquette while chanting and dancing like a madman. Due to constantly thinking of the Lord's pastimes, a pure devotee's mind and body become spiritualized. Being thus converted, the devotee's mind and body no longer act materially. Because of the intensity of his devotional service, all the devotee's material desires become completely burnt to ashes. This is the exalted stage at which one can achieve the shelter of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Therefore, my dear friends, begin immediately to meditate upon the Supreme Lord and worship Him who is situated within everyone's heart. The Supreme Lord is the well-wishing friend of all living beings, and thus there is no difficulty in worshipping Him. For what reason should people not engage in His devotional service and instead become addicted to producing so much artificial paraphernalia for sense gratification? One's wealth, beautiful wife and children, residence, and all other possessions are all temporary and flickering. What benefit can these material assets give to a sensible man who has understood himself to be eternal? Even heavenly elevation is temporary and therefore not the real goal of life. In this world, everyone is striving to increase happiness and diminish distress. The truth is, however, that one is happy only so long as he does not endeavor for happiness. As soon as one commences his activities to achieve happiness, his condition of distress begins. The living entity receives different types of bodies according to his previous fruitive work, and thus he suffers in various ways. Therefore, please tell me, after due consideration, what is the living entity's actual interest in fruitive activities? My dear friends, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the soul of all souls, and every living being is his eternal part and parcel. Therefore, he is the dearest person and should be worshipped without motive, following in the footsteps of the pure devotees. Anyone who takes to the devotional service of the Lord, be he a demigod, demon, human being, yaksha, rakshasa, gandharva, or anyone else, will become situated in the most auspicious condition of life, just like ourselves. The Supreme Lord cannot be pleased simply by one's becoming a perfect Brahmin, vastly learned and well-behaved, nor can he be pleased merely by the performance of austerity, sacrifice, the giving of charity, or by any other means. Only unalloyed devotional service can satisfy the Supreme Lord. Therefore, my dear friends, just as one favorably sees himself and takes care of himself, you should all take to devotional service so that you can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This much alone is the ultimate goal of life, as explained by all the revealed scriptures and confirmed by the great acharyas. So all the demon sons appreciated Prahlad's transcendental instructions, and they took them very seriously, and as a result they rejected Shanda and Amarka's materialistic teachings. And when the two teachers saw how their students were becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness due to Prahlad's association, they became very afraid. After taking Prahlad to his father, Shanda and Amarka explained everything. And after understanding the situation, Hiranyakashipu became so angry that his entire body began to tremble. Being very cruel by nature, Hiranyakashipu felt insulted while hissing like a snake that had been trampled upon. Hiranyakashipu decided to kill Prahlad with his own hands. Prahlad was very peaceful, mild, and gentle, and he stood before his father with folded hands, but the great demon was not to be pacified. With harsh words, Hiranyakashipu chastised Prahlad, saying, "O most impudent disruptor of our family, you have violated my authority, and so I will send you this very day to the abode of Yamaraj. When I become angry, all the planets within the three worlds tremble, along with their respective rulers. You rascal! By whose power have you become so impudent that you fearlessly overstep my authority to control you?" Prahlad replied, "My dear father, the source of my strength is also the source of yours. Indeed, the original source of everyone's strength is one, and without him no one can have any prowess. Everyone, including Lord Brahma, is controlled by the strength of the Supreme Lord, for he controls the time factor and the power of the mind and senses. By his unlimited prowess, the Lord creates this cosmic manifestation, maintains it for some time, and then annihilates it. My dear Father, please give up your demoniac mentality. Make your mind equipoised towards everyone. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no real enemy in this world. In former days, there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body, although they were very proud of having conquered the universe. Hiranyakashipu said, "You rascal, you're trying to minimize my value as if you're better at controlling the senses than I am. Therefore, I can understand that you wish to be killed by me, for such nonsensical talk is indulged in by those who are about to die. O most unfortunate Prahlad, you always describe a supreme person other than me, who is the controller of everyone and is all-pervading. Where is he now? If he is everywhere, then why isn't he present in this pillar before me? Because you are speaking so much nonsense, I shall now sever your head from your body. Let me see your worshipful God come and protect you." While Hiranyakashipu was threatening to kill him, Prahlad saw the Lord present in the pillar before him, encouraging him not to be afraid of his demoniac father. Hiranyakashipu could see that Prahlad was looking intently at the pillar, and it is for this reason he had challenged whether the Lord was present there. Actually, Hiranyakashipu, being a typical demon, was convinced there was no god who could save Prahlad, so he challenged the idea that the devotee is always protected by the Supreme Lord. Being obsessed with anger, Hiranyakashipu took out his sword. After chastising and cursing Prahlad again and again, getting up from his throne, Hiranyakashipu went and violently struck his fist against the column with great rage. Miraculously, from within the shattered pillar came a fearful and tumultuous sound that reached even the abode of Lord Brahma and seemed to crack the coverings of the universe. When the demigods heard that wonderful, never-heard-before sound, they thought, "Now our planets are going to be destroyed." Hiranyakashipu and the other leaders of the demons also became extremely afraid, for they could realize the supreme ruling power of the Lord in the form of that sound, although they could not trace out its origin. Then, to prove Prahlad's statement that he is present everywhere, the Supreme Personality of Godhead exhibited a wonderful form that had never been seen before. As Hiranyakashipu looked around to find out the source of the tumultuous sound, that wonderful form of the Lord emerged from the broken pillar. Being stunned with amazement, Hiranyakashipu studied the form of Lord Nrsingadev, and he wondered, what kind of creature is this that is half man and half lion? This form of the Lord was extremely fearsome because of his angry eyes, his shining mane that expanded the dimensions of his face, his deadly teeth, and his razor-sharp tongue that moved like a dueling sword. The Lord's ears were erect and motionless, and his nostrils and gaping mouth appeared like mountain caves. His neck was short and thick, his chest broad, his waist thin, and his huge body reached up to the sky. While picking up his club, Hiranyakashipu murmured to himself, Lord Vishnu has made this plan to kill me by utilizing his mystic power. But what is the use of such an attempt? Who is there that can fight with me? Appearing just like a small insect that becomes invisible while falling into a flame, Hiranyakashipu attacked the great effulgent Lord, and thus he could no longer be seen. Although Hiranyakashipu beat him repeatedly with his club, Lord Nrsimhadev captured him just as Garud seizes a great snake. Then, just as Garud sometimes plays with a snake by letting it slip out of his mouth, Lord Nrsimhadev gave Hiranyakashipu a chance to escape from his grip. The demigods had been watching the fight from behind the clouds due to their fear of Hiranyakashipu. When they saw the great demon escape, they became very perturbed, thinking that he might see how they were eagerly looking forward to his death and thus take revenge later on. After getting free from Lord Nrsimhadev's grip, Hiranyakashipu falsely thought that the Lord was afraid of him due to his prowess. After taking a moment's rest, Hiranyakashipu picked up his sword and shield, and once again attacked the Lord with great determination. As Hiranyakashipu moved, sometimes in the sky, sometimes on the earth, he protected himself with his sword and shield, leaving no gaps. But his eyes were closed out of fear of Lord Nrsimhadev's loud, shrill laughter. Then, as a snake pounces upon a mouse, Lord Nrsimhadev once again caught hold of Hiranyakashipu. Very afflicted at being held captive, Hiranyakashipu wildly swung his arms all around, here and there, while the Lord placed him lengthwise upon his lap. Lord Nrsimhadev sat down in the doorway of the assembly hall, pressing Hiranyakashipu on his thighs, and very easily tore him to pieces with his fingernails. The Lord's face and mane were sprinkled with drops of blood, and his fierce eyes, which were filled with anger, were impossible to look at. While licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue, Lord Nrsimhadev pierced Hiranyakashipu's abdomen with his nails, pulled out his intestines, and put them on as a garland, thus enhancing his transcendental beauty. The Lord then uprooted Hiranyakashipu's heart and threw his body aside so that he could confront the thousands of demon soldiers who were rushing towards him with upraised weapons. Lord Nrsimhadev very easily killed his faithful followers of Hiranyakashipu with the nails of his many, many hands. Thereafter, when he found that there was no one else opposing him, the Lord sat down on the royal throne within the assembly hall. The hair on Lord Nrsimhadev's head had scattered the clouds in the sky, and his glaring eyes had stolen the effulgence of the luminaries. The Lord's breathing had agitated the oceans, and because of his loud roaring, all the elephants in the world had cried out in fear. Airplanes were thrown upwards into outer space by the hair on Lord Nrsimhadev's head, and because of the pressure of his feet, the earth seemed to slip from its position, and all the hills and mountains sprang upwards. Hiranyakashipu had been benedicted by Lord Brahma that he would not die on the land or in the sky. Therefore, to keep that benediction intact, Lord Nrsimhadev had placed Hiranyakashipu's body upon his lap. Hiranyakashipu had received the benediction that he would not die during the day or at night, and so the Lord killed him during the evening twilight time. Hiranyakashipu had been benedicted so that he would not be killed by any weapon or by anything that was dead or alive. Therefore Lord Nrsimhadev pierced his body with his nails, which were not weapons, nor were they exactly living or dead. In this way the Lord kept all of Lord Brahma's promises intact, and yet easily killed the great demon. Hiranyakashipu had been like a fever of meningitis in the head of the three worlds. Thus when the wives of the demigods saw how he had been killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their faces blossomed with joy. Again and again they showered flowers upon Lord Nrsimhadev, while the demigods who crowded the sky with their airplanes beat upon celestial drums. The Apsaras danced in jubilation, and the Gandharvas sang very sweetly. All classes of demigods headed by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and King Indra approached Lord Nrsimhadev to individually offer their obeisances and prayers. The demigods were very relieved and happy to be freed from the fear of Hiranyakashipu and restored to their original positions. So they expressed their deep gratitude that the Lord had killed the king of the demons on their behalf. Still, because of Lord Nrsimhadev's very ferocious expression and glaring effulgence, even the great demigods headed by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva were too afraid to come and serve him directly. The Lord cannot tolerate blasphemy of his devotee, and thus his great anger was not pacified, even after hearing so many prayers in glorification. The demigods then requested Lakshmi, who is the Lord's constant companion, to approach him. But even Lakshmi had never seen such an extraordinary form of her Lord, and so she was also afraid to go near him. Finally, Lord Brahma addressed Prahlada Maharaj, who was standing close by. "My dear son, Lord Nrsimhadev is extremely angry at your demoniac father. Therefore, please go now and appease the Lord." Although Prahlad was just a small boy, he accepted Lord Brahma's request and gradually approached Lord Nrsimhadev with folded hands. When the Lord saw the small boy Prahlad fallen at his lotus feet to offer his obeisances, he became ecstatically affectionate towards him. After picking Prahlad up, Lord Nrsimhadev placed his lotus hand upon the boy's head just to benedict him with fearlessness. By the transcendental touch of the Lord's hand, Prahlad became completely freed from all material desires and contamination. Having thus been thoroughly cleansed, Prahlad became transcendentally situated, so that all the symptoms of ecstasy became manifest in his body. His heart became filled with love, and his eyes with tears, and thus Prahlad was able to completely capture the lotus feet of the Lord within the core of his heart. With his mind and sight fixed upon Lord Nrsimhadev in complete trance, Prahlad offered his prayers as follows in a voice that faltered due to transcendental emotion. "How is it possible for me, who was born in a family of asuras, to offer suitable prayers that will satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Even the demigods headed by Lord Brahma, who are all very qualified, could not pacify the Lord by their excellent words. And so what can be said by me? It appears that one cannot please the Lord simply by possession of great wealth, aristocracy, education, prowess, intelligence, mystic yoga perfection, or any other such expertise. However, one can satisfy the Supreme Lord simply by a little devotional service, as Gajendra formerly did. If one possesses all 12 Brahminical qualifications, but is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly inferior to a devotee who has taken birth in a family of dog-eaters, but has dedicated everything for the service of the Lord. The so-called Brahmin, being falsely proud, cannot even purify himself, whereas a devotee can deliver his whole family. So we're hearing here how Prahlad is offering beautiful prayers to the Lord, and in these prayers are very valuable instructions for all of us. So Prahlada Maharaj continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fully satisfied in himself. Therefore, when something is offered to him, it is actually for the benefit of the devotee. For example, when one decorates his face, then its reflection in the mirror is also seen to be decorated. Although I have been born in a demoniac family, I should offer prayers unto the Lord as far as my intelligence allows, because glorification of the Lord is always purifying. O my Lord, your appearance in this world is meant for the benefit of your devotees. Now that my demoniac father Hiranyakashipu has been killed, please give up your anger. Even saintly persons take pleasure in the killing of a scorpion or a snake, and so all within the three worlds have achieved great satisfaction because of this demon's death. In the future, people will remember your auspicious incarnation as Lord Nrsimhadev to become free from fear. My Lord, I am certainly not afraid of your ferocious mouth and tongue, your eyes as bright as the sun, or your frowning eyebrows. I do not fear your sharp teeth, your garland of intestines, your blood-soaked mane, or your high wedge-like ears, nor do I fear your tumultuous roaring, or your sharp nails, which are meant for killing your enemies. But because I have been put into the association of demons as a result of my past activities, I am very much afraid of my condition of life within this material world. When will the time come when you will call me to the shelter of your lotus feet, which is the ultimate goal of liberation from conditional life? O my Lord, due to combination with and separation from various pleasing and displeasing circumstances, one is placed in a most regrettable position, as if burning in a fire of lamentation. Whatever remedies are conceived of to get out of such a miserable life turn out to be more miserable than the miseries themselves. Therefore, I think that the only ultimate solution to all problems is engagement in your devotional service. Because the living entity is put into bondage by your external energy, who can get free from this entanglement unless he takes shelter at your lotus feet? My dear Lord, people in general want to become elevated to the higher planetary systems for enjoying a long duration of life and great opulence. However, I have personally seen that when my father was angry with the demigods, they were immediately vanquished simply by the movements of his eyebrows. And yet, you vanquished my father, who was so powerful, in just a moment. In your form as powerful time, you destroy the worldly opulence, mystic powers, and longevity enjoyed by all living beings, from Lord Brahma down to the insignificant ant. And so, I do not wish to possess such things. Instead, I request you to place me in contact with your pure devotee, and let me serve him as a sincere servant. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well, full of snakes, following the general populace. Your servant Narad Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple, however, and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I even think of leaving his service? O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of this material existence, for wherever I am, I can remain fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My only concern is for the fools and the rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness. by maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I see that there are many saintly persons, but they are generally interested only in their personal salvation. They remain alone in the Himalayas or in the mountains, in the forest, engaging in meditation with a vow of silence. Although they are not interested in delivering others, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without taking to Krishna consciousness, no one can become happy. And therefore I wish to bring all the conditioned souls back to the shelter of your lotus feet. After hearing Prahlada Maharaja's prayers, Lord Nrsimhadev became pacified, and he gave up his anger. With great kindness, the Lord said to Prahlad, "O best in the family of Asuras, may there be all good fortune for you. I am very pleased with you, and because it is my pastime to fulfill the desires of all living beings, I request you to ask for me any benediction you may desire. One cannot appreciate or understand me without having pleased me, and one who has seen or satisfied me has nothing more to lament for. Therefore, those who are very wise and elevated simply try to please me in various ways, for I am the only person who can fulfill all the desires of everyone." In spite of being allured like this, Prahlad, being a pure devotee of the Lord, did not want any material benediction, for he considered them to be impediments on the path of spiritual progress. While smiling very mildly, Prahlad replied, "My dear Lord, because of being born in an atheistic family, I am naturally inclined to enjoy material things. Therefore, please do not tempt me with these illusions, for I am very much afraid of materialistic life and desire liberation from it. It is for this reason that I have taken shelter at your lotus feet. Within this world, the seed of lusty desire is within the core of everyone's heart, and so I can guess that you have sent me here to exhibit the symptoms of a pure devotee. Otherwise, O Lord, you are so kind to your devotee that you would never induce him to do something that was not for his well-being. My dear Lord, one who desires some material benefit in exchange for devotional service cannot be a pure devotee. Indeed, he is no better than a merchant who wants some profit in exchange for his service. A servant who desires profit from his master is not a qualified servant. Similarly, a master who bestows benedictions upon his servant just to maintain his prestigious position as master is not a pure master. O my Lord, I am your unmotivated servant and you are my eternal master, for that is our natural relationship. If you at all want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray that no material desires may ever enter the core of my heart. O Supreme Person, in the form of a wonderful lion man, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you." The Supreme Personality of Godhead then said, "My dear Prahlad, a pure devotee like you never desires any kind of material opulence, either in this life or in the next. Nonetheless, I order you to enjoy the opulence of the demons by acting as their king until the end of the present Manvantara. It will not be an impediment for you to stay within this material world, provided that you always remain absorbed in thought of me by rendering devotional service. While remaining within this material world, you will exhaust the reactions of pious activities. By feeling happiness and by acting piously, you will neutralize the reactions of impious activity. Then, eventually, you will give up your body and return home back to Godhead, and your glorious activities will be sung about in the higher planetary systems. One who always remembers our pastimes and chants the prayers you have offered will become free from the reactions of all his material activities in due course of time. Prahlada Maharaj said, "O Supreme Lord, because you are so merciful to the fallen souls, I wish to ask for only one benediction. I know that my father has already been purified due to your having glanced upon him at the time of his death. However, being ignorant of your supremacy, my father blasphemed you, considering you to be the killer of his brother, and he has also committed greatly sinful acts against me, your devotee. I wish that my father may be excused for all these offences." Lord Nrsimhadev replied, "My dear Prahlad, not only has your father become purified, but altogether 21 of your forefathers as well, as a result of your having taken birth in this dynasty. Indeed, wherever there are peaceful, equipoised devotees like yourself, who are decorated with all good qualities, that place and the persons who reside there become purified. You are the best example of my pure devotee, and so others should follow in your footsteps. My dear son, your father has already been purified by the touch of my body at the time of his death. Still, it is the duty of a son to perform the Shraddha ceremony after his father's death, so that he will be promoted to a higher planetary system where he may gradually become converted into a devotee. After performing the Shraddha ceremony, sit down on the royal throne and take charge of your father's kingdom." So Lord Brahma was very pleased now that Lord Nrsimhadev's anger was pacified, and so Lord Brahma prayed, "O Supreme Lord of all lords, it is our great fortune that you have killed the sinful demon who was giving trouble to the entire universe. On the strength of the benedictions that he had received from me, this demon Hiranyakashipu became excessively proud and transgressed all the Vedic injunctions. My dear Lord, if one meditates upon your transcendental body, you naturally protect him from all sources of fear, even the imminent danger of death." The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, "My dear Brahma, just as it is dangerous to feed milk to a snake, it is dangerous to give benedictions to demons, for they are by nature ferocious and envious. I warn you, do not give such benedictions to any demon again." After being worshipped by Lord Brahma, Lord Nrsimhadev, who is not visible to an ordinary human being, disappeared from that place. And Prahlad then worshipped and offered prayers to all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. And thereafter, with the assistance of Shukracharya and other Brahmins, Lord Brahma enthroned Prahlad as the king of all the deities and danavas within the universe. And finally, after offering Prahlada Maharaj their benedictions, the satisfied demigods returned to their respective abodes. And so Prahlada Maharaj ruled over the kingdom, and after his rule, he went back to the spiritual abode, Vaikuntha Lok. And so this is the beautiful story, the beautiful katha of Prahlada Maharaj, and we can appreciate through his instructions, through his actions and his qualities, what an exalted personality he is. And therefore hearing about him and chanting his glories and chanting the prayers that he offers to Lord Nrsimhadev And applying these in our lives will bring success to our lives, will gradually help us develop Krishna Bhakti. So this session ends here, and just one thing we can see is that, as Prahlada Maharaj pointed out, anyone can render service unto Krishna, be it a demon even, or an animal, or anyone can render service unto the Supreme Lord, which is really, really amazing. So in this age of Kali, the Yuga Dharma is to chant the holy names of Krishna and attain perfection very easily. Lord Chaitanya, who is none other than Krishna, appeared 500 years ago and gave us a very potent and easy way to achieve perfection in this very lifetime, and it's simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Shri Prahlada Maharaj, Jai Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan.